maybe you have something like Rust that is like, oh, it's paying, $500,000, but there was only 2 job postings for it. Well, maybe you shouldn't learn Rust because there's not a lot of opportunities for data analysts with Rust. Whereas Python, maybe it's around 100 or 1,000 and it has thousands of job postings. Okay, this is a more optimal skill that you should be learning.
Welcome back to Insights by Design, episode 14. We're extremely excited to have Luke Barousse with us today. Luke, how are you?
Good. How are y'all doing?
We're good.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Luke, for those who aren't familiar with you, would you mind giving a quick intro?
Yeah, real quick intro. So I guess most people would know me from my YouTube channel, which I host. I've been doing it for the past about 3 years now, where I provide guidance on tech and skills for those in data science. I'm only geared towards those as data analysts. In a previous life, I was in the military for 7 years, served in the Navy, and then got out and then worked as a business analyst. And so, I worked with a little bit with that and did that for a few years and realized I liked teaching and making videos more than actually working in the real world. So transitioned towards YouTube. So I guess that's a real quick, brief introduction of me.
So tell us more about your experience working on a submarine, because not everybody in the data fam has that kind of experience. I mean, what can you tell us about working on a submarine, and how did those experiences translate to what you're doing now?
Yeah. A lot of it was, so 7 years in the Navy. I was on a submarine. So you get stationed to a submarine for a little bit of that. I wasn't on the submarine for the full 7 years. I was stationed to it for about 3.5 years. And about 2 years of that I spent underwater, actually patrolling and doing stuff like that. And that, I feel, didn't have a lot of impact on what I do now. Although, I mean, there's a lot of different personal and communication skills that you picked up and leadership skills that I picked up. But I would say, actually, my job after I got out of serving on the submarine for that first 3.5 years, I went and actually instructed new students into how to run a nuclear reactor and then go out to the fleet to man our submarines and carriers. And that experience really taught me a lot about learning, a lot about teaching, and a lot more about actually getting into and analyzing data. We used a lot of data on our side to analyze how students were performing and stuff like that. So that experience really helped propel me, and really that teaching experience really got me into wanting to teach this data analytics, if you will. So I guess that's a short little explainer on it.
Wonderful.
And another unique experience that you've had is you worked for MrBeast for a little while. Tell us about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so about last year around this time, actually, they reached out to me. I was doing, I was full-time YouTube and currently am right now. But there's not a lot of YouTubers and a lot of people that focus on data analytics. And they were looking for a data analyst that knew about YouTube. And I mean, it's not a lot of people on there for them to choose from. So they reached out to me and asked if I was interested into working for them, like for a little trial period of 3 months to try it out and see. I was like, what the heck? Definitely, I'm down to try this out. So I went out to Greenville, North Carolina, where they're located at, and worked for them for the 3 months while I was there. I worked primarily on the team focused on short form content, so TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts. And we just really dove into the analytics. I can't get into a lot of the analytics that we dove into, signed an NDA. But overall, super great experience. And it was really refreshing to me. I was going through a little personal issue at the time, sort of lost my way with YouTube, and I lost motivation to make videos. So that's really why I got attracted into this MrBeast opportunity, because I wanted to just rekindle that fire. And whenever I got to that job, it was so interesting to see there was a really young team, younger than me. So people fresh out of high school and college. And it was really refreshing to see how excited people were to use data in order to analyze it and draw insights and then go forward with building better systems or building better videos based on actual hardcore data. So I was really motivated by that aspect of it. But did that for 3 months, and it was a great experience, great team. But after that, I decided I really love having my own YouTube channel and making videos, and I wasn't able to continue to do that while also working full time at MrBeast. So after the 3 month little trial period we had, I decided to just we decided to part ways. We're still in good communications, no bad terms or anything like that. But overall, I'm forever in debt to Jimmy and his team for letting me come on board and actually work on that.
So, how did you get your start in YouTube?
Yeah. So funny enough, I was working as like an analyst for a chemical company, BASF, and I was just always wanting to learn about new tools that we were using. So I went to college, and whenever in college, I focused on just Excel. And some of the teachers were using like programming languages to stow stuff, but not really. We didn't really have any formal education on programming languages in college. It was really I have a whole like spiel on that, but it was so focused on Excel, and I couldn't stand that. I want to learn different stuff. So I finally got out. Whenever I was in the real world, I would work on projects, and they were like, "Oh, you need Power BI to do this project for the company." And I'm like, "I don't know Power BI, but I'm just going to learn it because I'd rather do that than do Excel." So it came to I was just learning different languages, different things on the side, and so I learned Python on the side, and a lot of my friends would come up to me and be like, "Hey, where do I start with Python? How do I get into this?" And so I would do like one-on-one sessions with them via Zoom or Skype and like teach them. And I had to do this a few times, and I'm like, I'm tired of like having to like repeat this process of, I mean, I love teaching them and I love being with friends, but it's like, I'm tired of this repeating process. I should just record this into a YouTube video and then post it online. So that way, if my friend wants to see it, they can go to it and anybody else can. So that's really how it all started with the YouTube thing, just doing that. And verse video was, I watch it sometimes like, oh my gosh, this thing's horrendous. But you build on it and you get better from there, and they get a little bit less worse every time.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a pattern, it seems, of identifying a need, going out and being proactive and learning it, and then sharing your knowledge. One of the topics I've seen you sharing a lot on is AI. How do you think AI is going to impact data and analytics?
Yeah, that's a big question. So I really do have a passion for finding new technologies that are potentially going to impact us. I think AI is going to have. I'm really bullish on AI and what's it going to do for data analytics. Just seeing what ChatGPT can do. I mean, as simple as feeding an Excel spreadsheet and then it feeds us back results. Granted, those results aren't necessarily, I mean, I'm sure y'all have worked with it as well. You've seen some of the hallucinations and some of the issues that it provides. So it's not perfect. And yeah, it's nowhere near perfect. But I mean, if you look at some of the first like spreadsheets or Excel spreadsheets and you look at the programs that they were working with back in the 80s and 70s, it's like, how were they working with these things back then? So I think it's gonna really transform the industry. Do I think it's gonna transform it tomorrow? That people are not gonna have a job tomorrow? No. But do I think it's gonna be different in here in like 5 years for what those core skills are gonna be? Yeah, I think it's gonna change, and so I wanna at least explore it. And I don't think I'm gonna be doing due diligence to my audience if I'm not sharing what I'm learning with them on it.
The CEO of NVIDIA just came out and famously said, don't learn
Yeah.
coding, learn
Yeah.
English. And nothing
Hmm.
against learning English, but what do you think is the impact of AI on coding?
Yeah, I mean, we can see already how these. I mean, we have speech to these models, right? It's usually like some sort of text to video, text to code, whatever, and how it's being developed. And I mean, I understand what he's saying. He probably has a lot more insight than me, so I'm not going to say, "Oh, I think he's completely wrong." I think it's going to change, but I think the context in which he was saying it, and I'm curious on y'all's thoughts too. I think it's still, and we talked about it a little bit before this recording started, but like something like SQL that interacts with a database, like you're still going to have some sort of language to interact with this database unless you rewrite SQL or whatever. So I think it's still going to be, even though you can write something in maybe use some sort of AI to transcribe into SQL and do it, I think it's still going to pay dividends to know some sort of language. And I think in that case, you maybe even be considered a specialist in the future. And, maybe even you're paying a higher paying salary because you're fine tuned on the salary or fine tuned on this language. And you can actually get behind what the AI model is like doing and actually verify it. So I think it's still going to pay to know those type of languages. I don't know. I guess I'm curious on what y'all think, because we talked about it a little bit before.
I think you need to know the context of the role of a CEO in order to take his opinions and understand them. So at JP Morgan, where I worked, Jamie Dimon lives in the future. He's thinking 10, 20 years in the future. Jeff Bezos says that his favorite part about his job is that he lives in the future. He doesn't think about day to day. So I would assume that the NVIDIA CEO is also thinking 10 plus years in the future. He's not thinking about tomorrow. And then, as data analysts, we know that the variance and the confidence interval over time gets really wide. So if we're thinking about 10 years in the future, we don't know what that looks like. But to your point about being able to validate models, you have to know the underlying mechanisms in order to know whether or not the model produced something that's right or not. I tell people it's like a junior analyst. People get things wrong all the time. So do AI models, and you just have to have somebody who knows whether or not the output was right or wrong, so that it can be your junior analyst. That's my opinion. Michael, what do you think?
Yeah, to piggyback on that, I see a lot of AI tools being treated as a black box, as this mysterious thing where data is inputted and then new data is automatically outputted, and people can understand the basic trend of garbage in, garbage out. But in the future, as these technologies continue to evolve, I think there's going to be an increasing demand for algorithmic literacies, and there's going to be an increasing demand for good teachers. Because in the higher education space, I'm seeing some very, I guess you could say, ham-handed treatments of AI, where we either want to ban it because we don't want students to cheat, or we want to embrace it without kind of the critical awareness of how to best use these different tools that are coming out and all the data that they're producing. And so we're going to need more experts to be able to bridge those gaps, help us to understand the tools, and also help us to use them critically to make the black box a lot less mysterious.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. I guess to build on your point even further, Michael, I also think like if you don't necessarily understand the fundamentals of what a language like the SQL can do or Python can do, like how can you be like, oh, I want to group, this thing, group it by and actually aggregate it to this level. If you're not understanding at that level, I don't understand how maybe you'll be able to do that or understand that analytics to perform with that language model. So yeah. And that's a good point with Andrew. You made about I didn't think about the CEO's perspective and I'm thinking about 10, 20 years in the future. It's like, oh, yeah, that's a really good point about that.
I think we've seen this pattern before with low and no code tools. Alteryx rolled out and they have a visual query builder. And we thought, oh, we can take folks, if we can just connect them to the database and they can just drag and drop and create these queries that they didn't have access to before. But what we saw was that all it did was really make analysts much faster. It didn't empower the business users because they didn't understand if their query was right or wrong. And if they ran into an error, they didn't understand how to debug it. So it really just augmented analysts. And I think we see that today where it's analysts and data scientists who are the primary users of low-code tools.
Yes. Yeah, no, that's a great point. Because I remember when Power BI rolled out their like AI thing a few years ago, and I'm like, this thing is crap, but it helps me. It speeds me up a little bit. Um, but I was like, I can't give this to my boss. They're gonna like spit this back in my face and be like, this is awful.
Exactly. Your junior analyst, they gave you something, it saved you a
Hmm.
little bit of time, and then you had to fix it.
Yep.
But I agree with you, Luke, that SQL's not going anywhere, in my opinion, because it's the primary way that we communicate with databases where all the data is stored, regardless of if it's a data lake or a data warehouse. We're all using SQL or some form of SQL. And you've doubled down on it, just released a SQL course. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So about 3 months ago. Yeah, so I reached out to Kelly Adams, who is on pretty big on LinkedIn as well. I've been following her for a few years. I was like, man, I need to get her help because making videos from day to day is it's a little strenuous. You wear it on yourself. There's nobody around you. Anyway, I needed help with developing content, and so I reached out to Kelly and was like, "Hey, do you want to help out with making a course?" And I'm thinking about starting with the number one skill of data analyst right now. I have an app that aggregates skills of different data science jobs, and SQL is the number one for not only data analysts, but also data engineers. And I think it's second for data scientists. Anyway, I was like, hey, Kelly, do you want to help me make this course? So we started about 3 months ago putting this thing together. And at first we were like, oh, this thing's going to be about 1 to 2 hours. And then come to find out it's like a 4 hour long video course that we finally got to. We launched it for basically for free on YouTube. Anybody can go onto YouTube, follow along, take the entire thing, and really it's like I learned SQL in like a weekend one time, just going through, and I'm like, it's one of the most, personally I feel, one of the simplest things to learn, and I think it's one of the best things to learn first. And so I was like, hey, I want to create a resource where I don't have to go around. I can go in one location, find out all the basics that you need, and build a project. And so that's what we do in it. We start off with the very beginning with just basic things, moved in some advanced concepts. And then at the very end, we build a project building on all those basic and advanced concepts into an actual capstone portfolio project that you can then host on something like GitHub. And no, I'm super excited with the final project that Kelly and I came with, because now you can go through this whole course and then have something to demonstrate to employers as experience on how you can use SQL.
So
Um,
YouTube is
yeah.
not really a learning management system. Why did you go with YouTube?
Hmm. Well, so that's a good question. So I had made a course previously to this on ChatGPT for data analytics, and I had put it be all behind a paywall. And I was focusing on whenever you're trying to build a course, and I was doing this basically by myself. I had a little bit. I had an assistant at the time, another assistant at the time, but it wasn't really. It was a very slow process for building. It took me almost 6 months to build this course by myself, and with the assistant. And like I said, I launched behind this paywall, and then I'm like, I'm a YouTuber. I make video content for other people. I try to make things accessible to everybody, and I just completely felt like I was basically violating my what I set out to do with YouTube of making education accessible to everybody. And so I ended up eventually just shutting down what was available behind the paywall, packaging it all up uh, into a single video of ChatGPT for analytics and posting on YouTube. And then the amount of response and positive response that I got from posting that video, it was just like, oh my gosh, like this is what I should be doing. This is how I should be making courses for other people to have access to. And so that was actually my learning experience before the SQL course. And yeah, it really opened my eyes, like, and made me really appreciate what I actually value. do I value putting a course behind a paywall, or do I value putting it out in the open for the YouTube? But completely to your point, I mean, I think I've learned a lot of things from YouTube, and so I thought that would be a good location for that. But I guess full disclosure, I do say it's my SQL course is available for free on YouTube, but YouTube unfortunately hasn't been paying the bills like it used to, and so I do have the option for those that want to contribute. They can pay a little bit of a pay $25, and then from there I'll give them some extra problems in addition to the course to work, along with some course notes and a certificate of completion, but completely not necessary for them to do in order for them to complete the course and get all the necessities out of it. But it helps actually fund to go back into paying to get to build these courses, to paying an editor to edit it, and to build it out.
If I give you $25, can I just have a certificate of completion?
You didn't complete anything.
He didn't say I had to complete it.
I would hope you would complete it and then get the certificate of completion.
Just kidding. I love your model. It reminds me a lot of like Posit and Anaconda, where there's a lot of open source and free material, and then they sell enterprise licenses. Yes. But a lot of that money goes back into developing that free material. So you're offering additional features, but it's really going back into you providing more valuable free material to more people. It's such a great model.
Yes, I love the model. Yes, I love the model. Especially, I mean, if you think about like our target market, our target market in general, like a lot of these people are students or, job changers, but mainly there's probably a lot of students that don't have a high income to like spend a lot of money or not a disposable income. So I love the model, especially that they do of like, hey, let's charge where the money's at in the enterprises and actually trickle it down to those underneath it and then get them into that, into helping the enterprises. So yeah, I'm with you on the business model. I love it.
And I hope that your content, I believe it'll rise to the top, because a lot of the best teachers are not teaching for free. So what is available on YouTube, of which there is much material about how to do SQL, how to do this, how to do that, is sketchy at best or hard to follow. Even if it's good material, it's not presented in an easy to digest and accessible way. So having somebody like yourself who, one, understands the YouTube model, two, understands the material, and three, can present it in an accessible way is so valuable. So I believe that it'll be incredibly popular.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Yeah, and I just want to give also a shout out again to Kelly, because really that she came up with the content behind it. She produced the course, and then we were working daily on a daily basis, interacting. But really, we were able to, like, she would suggest something, then be like, oh, okay, let's do this, and then she would be like, okay, well, let's do this, and it really helped elevate it, vice just me building it on my own, and then being like, I'm tired of working on this thing. I just want to get this thing out. So having two different perspectives, actually build it up and actually provide valuable things from people that have worked in the industry and use it. I hope so, that it does, that it's performing well right now. And I'm been overwhelmed by the positive support of everybody for it. And so I hope it continues to do well, but we'll see.
Well, Kelly's a teacher turned data analyst, so I'm sure a lot of her teaching experience really helped elevate the course.
Could you talk to us more about the teaching philosophy behind the course? How do you help ensure that the content and the skills that you want to convey are going to stick?
Yeah. The thing that I really like to focus on, that I've found out the hard way on YouTube, is you have to have like a storyline. And so that's what I try to build into this, is how can I have a storyline to entice people to get on. So I'm not going to just, on the SQL video, I don't start being like with, okay, this is your select statement and this is your from statement and this is, let's go execute the query. But like, why is this important? Why do you need to know this? And then get them bought in on, what we're going to be doing in the video. And yeah, that's honestly, I mean, you can find so many resources for free resources, like what is that one, W3 School, where they list out like everything, all your different SQL commands. Great resource. but like you can't necessarily go through that and learn that. Like I would, it's like watching paint dry. But I think if you're learning in addition to a video and maybe going to that for resources, I think that's good. But we're humans, right? We get bored easy. We have low attention spans. We're always reaching for our phone. How can you entice people to continue on and motivate them to continue to learn? And I'm not saying I'm perfect with it. I'm definitely not. I'm still learning. But that's something I try to build into it.
And so it's, I always find collaborations really interesting because I think all of us have had collaborations go really well and other collaborations
Hmm.
go south really fast. So could you talk to us about how did you know that Kelly would be a good collaborator, and what does your work share look like? How do you keep things moving? Sorry, Andrew, this is a multi-part question.
Damn it, Michael.
Okay, let me start over. So, and scene. So, Lou, could you talk to us more about collaboration? How did you know that Kelly was going to be a good collaborator?
Yeah. So I that's a good question. How did I know? I didn't know exactly, but I went following her on LinkedIn and seeing um, how she was active on LinkedIn. She's making good posts. She's making engaging content. And I'm like, okay, this is good quality content. It's in my field. I'm like, I can resonate with that. And then as a, hey, how can I see that she's going to collaborate well? Um, and just from looking at how she actually responds to her audience and how active her audience was, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is who I want. And I can't remember if I said this already, but I actually reached out to her a few months prior to the sequel course and be like, hey, do you want to come help me build a course or whatever? And she's like, I actually got something going on right now. I can't. But luckily it came a few months later, and then it like came up again, and she's like, hey, I'm available now. I'm like, great, let's get started on it. Um, so yeah, it was really, I had been following her for, I think like a year or two on LinkedIn, and that's really how. I don't have like a answer for if I meet somebody immediately how to find that out. Really, it was just I knew her for a while, and we had chatted here and there. So that I had just basically built up my experience with her and been like, okay, this is the perfect person.
And what would you say is your long-term vision for the course? So, sequel's not going anywhere, at least for the next 5, 10, maybe 20 years. But what's the big vision? What do you want the course to accomplish long term?
Yeah, long term. Oh, that man, I probably need to think about that more. But I guess what I am thinking is I want to provide. Obviously, SQL isn't the only important skill that we need to learn for us data nerds to learn and actually excel at. Long term, what I'm thinking is I want to provide more courses similar to SQL, Python, maybe Excel, Power BI, Tableau, maybe, and provide resources to be able to go to and then watch these videos, build up their skills, and hopefully land a job, if you will, in data analytics. Um, the benefit of the YouTube algorithm, yeah, compared to like TikTok and all these other ones where you have like a short half life, YouTube, it'll hopefully continue to perform or get out there over the next few years and provide resources to people. So that's really the goal. We've now shifted into, since we're complete with the SQL course, moved into Python. We're moving on to other stuff after. But really, I guess going back to what we talked about at the beginning with Andrew and AI is what type of resources can I be providing to the audience, especially geared towards helping them learn AI with analytics to speed up their job. And if I'm providing that, I I feel that I'm meeting my long term goal of helping the audience get where they need to get.
And how are you thinking about the success of this course in terms of measurement? So I know you're a data guy, you like to measure. You can look at kind of the vanity metrics of did it add subscribers or what are the views? But you keep talking about success of those who participate in the course. How are you going to measure that?
Yeah, that's a success. Well, I guess obviously I have to pay the bills, got to keep the lights on. So monetarily, is it going to get enough revenue to be able to, be able to keep the lights on, pay the editors, and keep it going? And I guess that's the first thing that's on top of my mind. 'Cause, but from a honestly, besides that, I'm actually more like, am I imparting, goodness on others? Am I able to provide some sort of value to others in order for them to reach their goals? And really, like I said, when we launched this sequel course, seeing the overwhelming amount of just positive comments and how many people are excited about it and how people are taking it and actually providing like how much they're enjoying the course, that's really the main thing to me. Like if I release something and it's not getting, I've released videos in the past and they don't perform well. I can tell after I launched it, like, oh gosh, this didn't really provide any value to the audience. That's the metric that I'm going to. And being the data nerd that I am, I'm like, that doesn't have like the good feeling inside. It's not really, you can't really measure that as much, but you can definitely tell, and you can do like a judgment call on that, and you can tell whenever you're getting away from it. So that's going to be my like North Star and leading thing for this is like, is it providing value to the core audience? If it is, continue to go in that direction.
And I think you'll get a lot of qualitative feedback of people, people on the internet aren't shy of telling you how they feel about things. They'll tell you if it's
Right.
good or bad or the value they get.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about the content. Is it beginner, like absolute beginner to intermediate or advanced? And tell us, what does that look like?
Yeah. For us, we were talking about Kelly and I when we first started this was, who is this designed for? And really, it's designed for somebody that maybe has one, no programming experience, and two, no data analytics experience. So really, you have to have, I would say, high school math or secondary school math education. That should be the only thing that you have. And even that, I feel, may not even be necessary. And that's really the prerequisite. And that will go into all of the different basics. Now we do limit the course. I don't want to say we limit the course, but we don't go into super advanced topics. Well, at least we called it super advanced topics of like something like window functions, which I think window functions are, very, very helpful, can speed up things. But as far as like an entry level data analyst in order to get your job, we didn't think we weren't going to focus on something that advanced of a topic. So we do cut off at a certain area and stop going. And personally, I feel like, hey, this course is a great way to get started, learn basics, advanced concepts, and then move into building a project. And really after that, I don't like this, this cycle of like constantly being in tutorials as a student. Like I got to do the next tutorial on SQL, the next tutorial. Like this hopefully is the last tutorial you have to take. Then from there, you should go out and build your own project or, work on some work experience. And then from there, during that work experience, maybe you have to find out that you have to use something like window functions. And then from there, you can learn it. But the goal hopefully is to get people out of being in this tutorial cycle for the rest of their lives. Like learn enough to be dangerous and then go out and, do good in the world.
I found projects difficult for SQL to demonstrate your abilities unless you pair it with something like a visualization software to show like, oh, I cleaned the data, I aggregated it, and here's a visual representation of that. SQL by itself can be tough to come up with a project. What does that final project look like?
Yeah, I think it's really, especially whenever you're only dealing with, SQL in general, right? Whenever you're using it with something like Microsoft Excel, Power BI, Tableau, like it has functionality to use SQL to connect the database, bring it in, and then from there actually visualize it and actually have something that's like, you can add all these colors and make it look fancy and like make yourself feel good that it was good. But anyway, SQL's the main point of that is SQL's at the core of it, and so you need to learn SQL. And providing a project around just SQL is not easy. And so we spent a lot of time developing the project aspect of it. And for us, what we decided to go with was the data from my app, datanerd.tech, which is a bunch of job posting data from 2023, so last year. All we provide all the job posting data, and then they go in and analyze what are some of the most high paying skills and what are the most highest paying jobs. Now, this data set includes things. This data set includes all these different data science jobs. So you have data scientists, data engineers, and data analysts. And I tell them during this project, like, hey, I'm going to do during this project, I'm going to research my field of interest, which is data analyst. But say you're, a data scientist taking this, or a machine learning engineer taking this, you can use that. You can actually instead actually search for that type of data in this data set. And you can actually search for it in your location. If you're over in India, you can search for India. And so we go through and look for because we're mostly we are getting data back in sort of a tabular form. We're looking for what are the top skills, and then maybe what are some top paying jobs in your role. And then we go to even further to combine it and find out what is basically the most optimal skills to learn. So, may have something like, let me think, like maybe you have something like Rust that is paying, which is a programming language. Maybe you have something like Rust that is like, oh, it's paying, $500,000, but there was only 2 job postings for it. Well, maybe you shouldn't learn Rust because there's not a lot of opportunities for data analysts with Rust. Whereas Python, maybe it's around 100,000 and it has thousands of job postings. Okay, this is a more optimal skill that you should be learning. So that's what the project does, goes through and for your field finds what are the most optimal skills that you should be learning next. And spoiler alert for data analyst, it comes out to be SQL.
Yeah, so I work at ASU in the School of Applied Professional Studies, and really, we want students to have jobs too. So when you started talking
Mm-hmm.
about datanerd.tech, I got really curious, and I've been going through these different pages. Talk to us about the impetus behind maintaining this website, and then what are surprising things that you're learning from scraping these jobs day after day after day?
Yeah. Well, I guess the first thing, the basis behind it, I um, I don't mean to. I'll just rant for a little bit. I apologize. we I always was watch I was always watch these I'm not calling out anybody, but I was always watching these videos and people be like, these are the top skills you need to learn for this, and then for becoming a data scientist or whatever. And then but then I'm like, okay, so what's the data say? Where do we have any data insights for this? And like nobody would provide like any data insights. What is the percentages? So I got tired of that. And even I'll admit it to myself. Like I made videos before datanerd.tech was invented, and I'd be like, these are the top skills you need to learn. And then I'm like, well, but that's just based on like one data point. Me, I need more data points. So that was sort of the idea behind it. And yeah, so over the course of a few months, I had to take a break from YouTube to build this thing because it was way more. I got over my head than I realized. Worked with a API service to basically build a Python script to scrape these job postings, putting it into a BigQuery database, and then I built a Python Streamlit app that displays this. Um, but when we got done with it, I was just really surprised, especially for I'm pulling mainly data analysts, data scientists, and data engineers role. And it was just overwhelming how important SQL was and how important, well, Python is. Not necessarily as much for data analysts, but being those 2 skills were the top, I'm like, oh, I was really surprised by this. Um, and that's really one of the key insights that I found from this. And then breaking it down further into data analysts, seeing how I think SQL and then Excel is second for data analysts, seeing how programming languages are a little bit less important for data analysts was like eye opening to me, because I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty biased towards programming languages. I like the code, and so I would always try to push like Python programming on my channel, and then Well, actually analyzing the data, I realized, okay, Python is not necessarily the most important skill that data analysts need to learn. It's actually, it's like third or fourth on the list. And, now I had that data and I'm like, okay, I got to be more honest to my audience about that.
Mhm. Yeah, so in addition to all of the great stuff that you have on datanerd.tech, what are some soft skills that can help people succeed as a data analyst, a data scientist, or a data engineer? And by soft skills, I mean things like people skills, teamwork, problem solving. What would be your top soft skills that you would encourage people seeking a job to go out and learn?
Yeah, I think I'm once again, I'll be completely transparent. I'm probably biased in this area. And I think, but I don't think I'm wrong in being biased in this. I would say communication skills are some of I think the highest. And that's what's going to happen with, what a data analyst or data engineer, data scientist is going to be doing on a daily basis. They're not going to be sitting in this spreadsheet for 100% of the day. They're probably going to be in the spreadsheet, 30 to 50% of the day. And then they're going to be in meetings and they're going to be trying to convince stakeholders of something. So for me personally, I'm curious on y'all's answers as well. For me, I think it's communication. And I always recommend, like I said, I'm a little biased, of how to work on this. I think social media, saying what others do. Andrew, you're great at this about your posts and everything. And I think if people can start doing those type of things to communicate and practice and telling a story, those things are going to help transfer over to the real world. And not only that, but also whenever you're making these LinkedIn posts to build your communication skills, also you're getting out in front of more people to potentially get a job. But yeah, I guess I'm curious on y'all's thoughts as well. What do y'all think? Because I don't. That's personally what I feel for the highest skill for soft skills. But
Well, I'm biased myself because I'm a professor of technical communication, and that's basically a field that tries to bridge the gap between subject matter experts and the lay public or other stakeholders. And theoretically, it has its roots in mining engineering, like developing safety manuals, like communicating complex stuff to a wide
Mhm.
variety of users. And so I definitely can give you a second on developing your communication skills. And I think datanerd.tech is actually a good example of effective technical communication because it has a lot of data beneath it. And it's displaying a lot of complex stuff, but it's so easy to look at, and it can reach, I think, a very broad audience. And I think social media and LinkedIn in particular is a good place to practice technical communication skills because you get instant feedback and you have
Yes.
a community. You're not just shouting
Hmm.
into the void, it's real time
Right.
interactions. What do you think, Andrew?
Yeah.
Having hired a lot of data analysts, dozens at this point, I would say that one, you need to be a problem solver. You need to
Hmm.
understand that you're not going to know everything and be comfortable with that and be comfortable with using your resources to try to find a solution. And paired with that, you also have to have the confidence to have zero opacity. What I mean by that is being completely honest about where you are, what you know, and what you don't know. Nothing drives me crazier than when I follow up on a project and the analyst or the team will tell me that they're fine and it's coming along, but it turns out they're not fine and they actually don't have the resources that they need to get something done when they could have just told me and we could have
Yep.
solved it together. But it takes that confidence and lack of ego to just be completely transparent about what you are and are not good at, which is one thing I don't like about social media is everybody's pretending to be an expert, and including myself, right? And
Right.
it's none of us are really experts. I don't
No.
think none of us know everything. If an expert is somebody who knows everything and doesn't have to Google something, none of us are
Hmm.
experts. But just
Right.
having that confidence to be completely transparent is,
Yes.
for me, critical for hiring a data analyst.
So, building on your example,
Mm.
Andrew, I would add that the communication skills are not just written communication skills, their verbal communication skills, and visual communication skills. You need to have that
Yes.
trifecta. You need to write, you need to talk, you need to you need to communicate with graphics and dashboards and other stuff that people look at.
Yeah.
And Luke, to wrap up, just one last hard hitting question. How many of those shirts do you own?
Funny enough, hold on.
Luke wears that shirt in every YouTube video.
I actually I have multiple different flannels. Oh, I got another one right here.
I love it.
So funny.
It's your brand.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so actually, I'm a minimalist, but you make a million different decisions throughout the day. And if you can actually streamline a lot of the different processes you have and make your decisions easier in the morning or at the beginning of the day, it's going to make your life a lot easier. So really, yeah, I wear this blue flannel, but it's really because I want to wake up in the morning, I put on black pants every morning, and I put on this blue flannel, and it just makes it easy. And it just happened to be that, okay, well, now I have this sort of brand around blue flannels as well.
The Steve
Every time I
Jobs
see a blue
approach.
flannel shirt on YouTube, I know it's Luke Barousse. Well, Luke, thank you
But I
so
did definitely,
much.
yeah. No, thank y'all so much for having me, Michael and Andrew. This has been awesome. I had such a good time hanging out with y'all, and learned a lot from y'all as well, especially. So definitely interested to pick your brain more, Michael, on communication skills. Seems like you have a very big background in that. So
Oh yeah, anytime.
And we'll link all your links in the course. We'll link it below. Thank you so much today, Luke.
Thank y'all as well. Appreciate it.